everybody! Today's lesson is painting like Jackson Pollock. I'm actually outside of my backyard so I can get a little bit messy. I'm going to demonstrate this project first with a black paper. So as you can see, I've already laid down a plastic garbage bag and taped it to the deck to keep it kind of clean. I'm going to start with some paint. I'm going to squeeze out just a little bit. You don't need a whole lot, probably a quarter size drop of white paint. Now I'm going to add some water, about a tablespoon of water. And I'm going to mix it together to dilute the paint. So I'm just using the back end of a paintbrush to mix it together here and make a nice watery paint. Next, I'm going to use some yarn. I'm going to cut a strip that's about 10 inches long. And now this will be my painting tool. So instead of a traditional paintbrush, I'm going to use this. I'm going to load up the end of the paintbrush, at the end of the yarn piece with some paint, and drop it over top of the artwork. So this gives you a dripped artwork. I'm also making sure to cover up all the different parts of the painting. So every edge, every section with about equal amounts of paint. I reload it, I dip it in, the paint again. Sometimes it helps when you dip it in to use the paintbrush to sort of make sure the water and paint are really loading onto the piece of yarn. And then you drip it down again. Now I'm going to add another color. Here I'm going to do the same thing but with yellow. So I'm diluting the yellow, mixing it in with some water, making it nice and runny. The runnier it is, the better it will drip. Thick paint doesn't drip very well, but once you water it down, it drips really nicely. So I'm building up a second layer. So the first layer was white, now I'm building up a layer with yellow. Here are 3 more creative ways to get the paint onto your paper. You can use a paintbrush and flick the paint down. The whole intention is to cover the whole paper as evenly as possible. So make sure you get every section, no matter what technique you're using, use the whole paper. Here I'm using the yarn and I'm actually dragging it right onto the paper. So instead of dripping it from above, I'm loading it with paint and I'm dragging it all over the paper evenly in all the different areas. This again creates really beautiful, interesting marks, as you can see when I hold it up here. Now the funnest and messiest technique that Jackson Pollock used is actually pouring paint right onto the paper. So here I watered it down a little bit more. Don't pour too fast, pour very gently, otherwise it could just saturate your whole artwork. So how exactly did Jackson Pollock come up with his dripped and poured painting technique? Well, in 1936 he attended an experimental workshop where he was introduced to using liquid paint. He went home to his studio and he practiced several techniques on canvases. Eventually, he put his canvas right down on his studio floor, and this is how he developed what was called dripped and poured paintings. He used different household items such as sticks, old hardened dried paintbrushes, and other paint applicators to drip and let the paint flow right down onto the canvas. By creating artwork like this, Jackson Pollock was moving away from figurative representation and challenging the Western tradition of just using an easel and a paintbrush. Jackson Pollock was known as an abstract expressionist artist, and he was also known as an action painter because his artwork literally was action-based. One interesting thing about painting right down on the floor is that he could access all parts of the canvas equally. He could walk around it and access every single part of it, which is a little bit different than when you're painting on an easel.